The cursor blinked at me from a blank document. 400 pages. 2 years of work. Gone. I frantically clicked through every folder on my laptop, searching in every backup location. I checked again. And again. Nothing. My manuscript, the one I was supposed to present to Hark Publishing in just 6 hours, had vanished. It was like it never existed. Looking for something. Dad's voice cut through the silence. I turned around to see him standing in the doorway, his coffee mug in hand, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. The kind of smirk that meant he'd won something. My novel. Where is it? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. He sipped his coffee slowly, dragging out the moment. I deleted it last night. Did you know you left your laptop open? Very careless. His words were slow, deliberate. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to close in on me. You deleted my book. I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. The air felt thick, suffocating. All 400 pages of that fantasy nonsense. Dragons and magic and whatever else you've been wasting your time on. His tone was dismissive, almost mocking. That's 2 years of work. I choked out, feeling my heart race. I have a publisher meeting today. Mom walked in just then, her arms crossed, her face tight with judgment. Writers are just failed adults playing pretend, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. It's time you grew up, Naomi. Your sister makes real money. 60,000 last year. What have your little stories earned? Nothing. Because I haven't published yet, I muttered. This meeting's a waste of time, Dad chimed in, setting his coffee mug down with a finality I couldn't ignore. You should be focusing on getting a real job. Writers like you are a dime a dozen. A publisher meeting. Please. They probably meet with hundreds of delusional writers. My chest tightened, my hands trembling as the weight of his words hit me. I'm not delusional. I'm real. But we're looking out for you, Mom added, her voice cold. At least now you can focus on a steady job. Clothes company needs help packing orders, minimum wage. It's honest work. It was as if every dream I'd ever had was being crushed right in front of me. The voices in my head screamed, but I held it together. Barely. I have a creative writing degree, $40,000 in student debt, I said, my voice growing steadier, though the sting still burned. Mom sniffed. For what? To sit in your room, making up stories like a child. I was 28. Living in their house. I knew it, they knew it, and I felt their judgment every second. Dad's voice broke in, sharp and unforgiving. Well, time's up. Either get a real job or get out. The words hit me like a slap. I looked at my family. The ones who had once believed in me, who bought me notebooks when I was little, who told me to chase my dreams. When had they become the people who mocked me for doing just that? The meeting's in 6 hours, I said, my voice quieter now. This could change everything. Mom crossed her arms, shaking her head. Nothing's changing. You're going to call them and apologize for wasting their time, then you're going to start filling out job applications. There's a clothes company hiring. McDonald's would be better than this. The world felt like it was crashing down around me. 2 years of work, hundreds of hours spent writing, dreaming, living with characters who felt more real than my own family. Gone in an instant because my father decided I needed a reality check. Writers like you don't make it. Get a real job, Dad said again, this time with a tone that sounded more like a command than advice. But they had no idea. No idea that the book I'd spent years writing, the one they just deleted from my laptop, was already printed. They didn't understand how modern publishing worked. They thought it was all about meeting with publishers. But they had no clue that traditional publishers don't meet with authors who only have digital copies. They meet with authors who have already signed deals, whose books are already in print. My meeting today wasn't a pitch. It was a launch strategy session for a book that was already on the shelves, already pre-ordered, already sold for a six-figure advance. I pulled out my phone, dialing my editor Diane. "Naomi, ready for this afternoon?" she asked, excitement in her voice. "Well, there's a small hiccup," I said, my heart pounding. "My parents deleted my manuscript." There was a brief silence. Then, laughter. "They what?" Diane laughed harder. "How very 1990s of them. Don't worry, it's all backed up in about 17 places. Plus, we have 10,000 copies in the warehouse. We're good to go." I couldn't help but laugh, though the tension still gripped me. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that their attempts to destroy my dreams had only made them stronger. I looked at the clock. 6 hours until the meeting. 6 hours until everything changed. Would I tell them? Watch their faces fall as they realized how wrong they'd been. Or would I walk out, a published author already? I didn't know what I was going to do, but one thing was certain, this was my moment. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end. Let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Your support means the world, and I love connecting with you all. The next part is going to take you deep into the meeting. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. I stood there, staring at the screen of my phone, still processing Diane's laughter. She was right. How very 1990s of my parents to think they could just delete my dreams. But as much as I wanted to feel victorious, my chest still felt tight. I had 6 hours. 6 hours to change the trajectory of my life. I picked up the coffee cup Dad had left behind, my fingers trembling slightly as I brought it to my lips. The hot liquid burned my throat, but it didn't quite burn away the nervousness pooling in my stomach. I walked down the stairs, trying to act like nothing was wrong. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing had been erased. Ready to join the real world. Dad's voice was too cheerful. He was so sure of his victory, so sure that he had won by forcing me to face reality. His smugness made my skin crawl. I forced a smile and poured myself more coffee. "Actually, yes," I said, trying to sound calm, but inside, I was anything but. Mom perked up, her eyes flashing with satisfaction. "You're going to go to the interview at Clothes Company, right? They need someone to pack boxes. Honest work. You'll finally understand what real responsibility is." Chloe, of course, couldn't resist swooping in, grinning in her oversized designer bag as if she had all the answers to my failures. "It's not an interview, Naomi. Just show up, pack boxes, and start working. You'll be fine." I almost laughed, the ridiculousness of it all biting at me like an insect I couldn't shake. "You know what, Chloe?" I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've been thinking. You're right. It's time to face reality. I'll go pack boxes." Her eyes widened, a mix of confusion and disbelief crossing her face. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Yeah, I'm serious," I said, my tone flat, though a part of me felt like I was dying inside. "I'm giving up the writing thing. Writers are just failed adults, right?" Her face twisted in disbelief, then shifted into that smug satisfaction I knew all too well. Dad clapped me on the back, a little too hard. "There's my girl. Finally seeing sense." I could feel Mom's approval, her smug smile as if she had single-handedly saved me from my delusions. But I wasn't really going to cancel the meeting. I wasn't going to walk away from everything I'd worked for just because they told me I should. I wasn't going to let them win. You know, I said, trying my best to sound like I was just going along with their plan, I should probably go cancel the meeting in person, just to show them I'm taking responsibility. Professional courtesy and all that. Waste of gas, Dad grumbled, but he didn't argue further. I'll do it on the way to close store, I added, grabbing my keys off the counter, all the while smiling on the outside, though my insides were storming with everything I couldn't say. Good girl, Mom said, as if she had solved all my problems. I was out the door before they could change their minds. I drove to the city in a daze, the engine purring beneath me while my mind raced. I had to put on a show, pretend like everything was fine, like I wasn't about to walk into the biggest moment of my life. The building loomed ahead as I pulled into the parking garage. Heartfelt Publishing. The top 3 floors of a gorgeous old building, one that practically screamed literary prestige. I had been here before, for contract signings and editing sessions, but this time, everything felt different. This time, I was walking in with a purpose. This time, I wasn't a failed adult. I was a published author. I took a deep breath before walking inside, letting the chill of the air conditioning wash over me. Claire, the receptionist, smiled when she saw me. Love the outfit. Very author about town, she said with a wink. I couldn't help but laugh. Thanks, Claire. Is everyone here? Conference room B, she said, pointing down the hall. They're setting up the display copies now. I felt my heart skip. Display copies. Of my book. I walked down the hall and into the room, and there they were. Stacks of my book, gorgeous hardcover editions, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The cover I had dreamed about for years. A dragon curled around a crumbling tower with the moon rising behind it. My name in bold letters across the bottom. Naomi Blake. Not a failed adult. Not a pretend writer. Published author. Here she is. Diane rushed over, squeezing my hands with excitement. Ready to make you famous. I couldn't stop the smile that spread across my face, the weight of the moment crashing over me. This was it. My moment. Ready, I said, my voice filled with a newfound strength. Wow, can you feel the tension building up? It's about to get even more intense. If you're enjoying the story so far, hit that like button and let me know where you're tuning in from. Your support keeps me going. But here's the twist, you won't believe what happens next. Things are about to take a wild turn. Stay tuned for the next part, you'll want to hear it all. The meeting flew by in a blur of marketing strategies, blog tour schedules, and discussions about my book's upcoming launch. I tried to stay present, to listen as Diane and the team outlined the months of work ahead. But my mind kept drifting back to the stacks of my book in the corner of the conference room, the one my family thought had been deleted. They were all talking about plans, book tours, interviews, promotions, but all I could think about was how my dad had wiped out my 2 years of hard work without a second thought. I had spent endless nights, countless hours, pouring my heart into those pages. And now they were about to see how wrong they were. We're thinking a 30-city tour, the marketing director said, her voice animated. We'll start with Powell's in Portland, obviously, then hit Seattle, San Francisco. What do you think? That sounds perfect, I said, nodding as though I wasn't internally screaming. Diane caught my eye, giving me a knowing look. I have to say, we're all so excited about this. You've got the fans, the buzz, it's all happening so fast. So, about your housing situation. I froze. Housing. I hadn't even thought about it. My parents' house was no longer an option, and I couldn't bring myself to go back to the place that still felt like a battleground. I'll figure it out, I said, my voice steady. I'll probably find somewhere temporary. Diane looked at me with an almost maternal gaze. Actually, I've got a friend. She's a poet, lives in the Pearl District, and she's looking for a roommate. Her apartment is great for writers, bright, quiet, and cheap. You could move in right away. Her offer felt like a lifeline. I wasn't about to go back to my parents' house, but I had no idea where else to go. That sounds amazing, I said. Thank you. You're welcome. We take care of our authors, especially the ones whose families try to sabotage them, Diane added with a smirk, her voice warm but firm. I'll send her your info. You could move in this week. I barely had time to process the whirlwind of excitement when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe, my sister. Where are you? You were supposed to be here hours ago. I gave the position to someone else. I could practically hear her frustration through the screen. I stood up abruptly, startling Diane and the others. I tried to smile. I'm sorry, I have to go. I rushed out of the conference room, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to throw the phone in a corner and ignore everything Chloe had to say, but I knew I couldn't. She was still my sister, even if we had a complicated history. I stepped into the elevator, hit the ground floor, and walked out into the bustling streets of Portland. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the pavement as I got into my car. By the time I pulled up outside Chloe's store, I was already bracing myself for the confrontation. I grabbed one of my books from the back seat, The Last Dragon Keeper, and walked inside. Chloe spotted me immediately. Her eyes narrowed. You're 3 hours late. They gave the position to someone else. I didn't even flinch. That's okay, I said, setting the book on the counter. I had a meeting. A meeting? She asked, clearly confused. You said you were canceling. You were supposed to. Her words faltered as her gaze landed on the book. The one I had spent 2 years writing, the one Dad thought he had deleted. The one that was real. Her eyes widened, and I could see her face change as she picked up the book, her hands shaking slightly as she flipped through the pages. She saw my name. She saw the dedication. The author bio. My photo. This is real. Her voice trembled, disbelief flooding her tone. I nodded, a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. As real as your makeup sales. Actually, more real. This is my dream. Printed, bound, and about to be sold in bookstores all over the country. Her eyes filled with something, shock, pride, maybe even jealousy, but it quickly shifted to the familiar expression I'd come to expect from her, resentment. You lied to us, she spat, the words sharp and angry. No, I said calmly, my voice quiet but firm. I protected myself. There's a difference. She looked at me, her jaw clenching. And what now? What do you think Mom and Dad are going to do when they find out? You think they'll just let you get away with this? I shook my head, refusing to let her get under my skin. It's a little late for them to try to delete it again. I pulled out my phone and opened the Barnes & Noble website. I showed her the pre-order page. There it was. My book. Available for $26.99. I raised an eyebrow. Though, if you ask nicely, you could probably get the family discount. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her face frozen in shock. This is real, she said again, as if saying it over and over would somehow make it true. And 6 months ago, when you were bragging about your bonus, I was signing a 6-figure book deal, I said. While you were counting makeup sales, I was working with editors. While Dad was trying to delete my future, it was already printed. Her face twisted with emotion, confusion, anger, and something that might have been pride before it all melted into the familiar resentment. Mom and Dad are going to be furious, she muttered, but it didn't sound like she was talking to me anymore. It was more like she was talking to herself. Let them be, I said. They don't get to decide my success anymore. If you're still with me, hit that like button. How are you feeling about this? Imagine what it's like to finally prove everyone wrong. It's so empowering, isn't it? And if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Just wait until the next part, you won't believe how this all comes to a head. The family confrontation is just around the corner, and trust me, it's going to be explosive. Don't miss it. I could feel the tension in the room thickening as Chloe continued to stare at the pre-order page on my phone, her face shifting between disbelief and anger. The truth had hit her like a freight train, and now, it was all unraveling. How could you keep this from us? She finally asked, her voice sharp, biting. Why didn't you tell us? I stood there, holding my ground. Because I knew exactly how you'd react. You're not happy for me. You never have been. She stepped back, her eyes narrowed, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You think I'm not happy for you? She laughed bitterly. I'm your sister, Naomi. I've watched you struggle, watched you fail, and You've never understood, I interrupted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. You and Mom and Dad, you've never understood what this means to me. You've always made me feel small, like I was chasing a fantasy. Her face reddened. Well, maybe because it was a fantasy. You were wasting your time on this writer of a dream when you should have been doing something real with your life. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to yell, to tell her everything that had been building up inside me all these years. But I didn't. I couldn't. I wasn't the person I used to be, the one who let their words cut so deep. I took a breath and said, I don't need your approval anymore. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place, anger, hurt, maybe a little bit of regret, but it was quickly buried behind a mask of defiance. She shook her head, her voice low. You really think you can just walk away from us, from this family? I am walking away, I said, my words final. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not just to make you happy. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence was deafening. I could hear the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears as I watched her, waiting for her to lash out again, waiting for her to come for me like she always had. But this time was different. Finally, she dropped her gaze to the book in her hands. I could see the weight of it in her fingers, as if she was afraid it might break her, just like everything else. You've really made it, she whispered, barely audible. And for the first time in a long time, I saw something like admiration in her eyes. But before I could say anything, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down and saw the name Mom flashing on the screen. My stomach dropped. You're not answering that, are you? Chloe asked, her voice cold, almost amused. I hesitated for a moment. My mom would never understand. She would never accept this, she would demand an explanation, demand I come back, apologize, and grovel. But I wasn't that person anymore. I answered the call. Naomi, where are you? Mom's voice was sharp, frantic. I need you to come home right now. Your father and I are waiting for you. I could almost feel her trying to control me through the phone, trying to pull me back into the cage of their expectations. I'm not coming home, Mom, I said, my voice steady, but my heart was pounding in my throat. I'm not going to apologize for living my life. For finally living. I could hear her take a sharp breath, like she was trying to hold back her fury. You have to come home. We need to talk about this. You can't just disappear on us like this. I smiled, though I knew she couldn't see it. I've already disappeared, Mom. And it feels damn good. Her silence was enough to confirm what I already knew. I wasn't the daughter she wanted anymore. I'm not coming home. I'm moving forward with my life. You can keep trying to drag me back, but I'm done. There was a long pause. And then, as if she was trying to regain control, she snapped, "Don't you dare come crying to us when this all falls apart. You'll see. You'll regret this." "I won't regret it," I said firmly. "I've already found something better. I've found myself." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart still racing in my chest. That was it. I had finally cut the tether. I had made the choice. And I wasn't going back. Chloe was still standing there, her face a mixture of shock and something else, maybe pride. Maybe jealousy. "Do you think they'll ever forgive you for this?" she asked quietly. "No," I said, shaking my head. "And I don't need their forgiveness anymore. I've got bigger things to focus on." Chloe didn't say anything, but she looked at me in a way I hadn't seen in years. It was as if, in that moment, she realized I wasn't the person she thought I was. Then, she hugged me. It wasn't the usual tense hug she always gave me, the one that felt like a business transaction. This one was different. This one felt real. She squeezed me tight and whispered in my ear, "I'm proud of you, Naomi. You're finally doing what you love." I was speechless. I hadn't expected this from her. But maybe, just maybe, there was hope that things could change. I pulled back, smiling through the knot of emotions in my chest. "Thanks, Chloe." "You're welcome," she said, her voice a little softer now. "And hey, when can I buy one of these?" She held up my book, a small, knowing smile crossing her face. "Full price, right?" I laughed. "Full price, you know the rules." Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut ties with people who didn't believe in you? It's tough, but sometimes it's the best thing you can do for yourself. And if you've gone through something like this, share your story. You're not alone, and I want to hear from you. The storm isn't over yet. In the next part, things are about to explode, family confrontations, unspoken truths, and a future that no one saw coming. Trust me, you don't want to miss how it all ends. Stay tuned. The next few days felt like a blur, a whirlwind of interviews, book promotions, and messages that felt almost too good to be true. But it was all real. My book was out in the world, already a part of so many lives, and it was impossible to ignore the pride that bubbled up inside me each time I saw it on display in a store or caught a glimpse of it online. But there was something else. A storm that was brewing, a tension that I couldn't shake. My family was still out there, and they weren't going to let me walk away so easily. They hadn't forgiven me. Not by a long shot. I was in my new apartment, an actual apartment. Not my parents' house. Not a temporary stop. My own place, with a view of the city, a room for writing, and the freedom to breathe. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping coffee and reading through a set of reviews for The Last Dragon Keeper, when my phone buzzed. It was from Mom. "We need to talk. Your father is furious. You can't keep avoiding us. You owe us an explanation." I stared at the screen, the anger building in my chest. The same anger I'd felt when Dad deleted my manuscript. The same anger that made me question everything about them. But this time, I wasn't going to let it control me. I wasn't going to let their demands define my future. I took a breath and hit reply. "There's nothing left to talk about. I'm living my life now. You can either accept it or not, but I'm done playing by your rules." I pressed send before I could second-guess myself, and I felt a strange kind of peace wash over me. This was me now. The girl who had been afraid of disappointing them for so long was finally free. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A call. From Dad. I sighed, but I answered anyway. Naomi, he started, his voice tight, full of that familiar tension. I don't understand what you're doing. You can't just shut us out like this. You owe us an explanation for everything. You can't just pretend like we don't matter. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to find the calm that had gotten me this far. I wasn't going to let him guilt-trip me into feeling small. Dad, I said, my voice steady, I don't owe you anything anymore. You've made it clear you don't support me, that you think I'm just a joke. But I'm not. And I'm done begging for your approval. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing, almost as if he were trying to find the words to fight back. You've really done it now, he said, his voice soft but dangerous. You've turned your back on us. And for what? For a book. For some fairy tale. You think that's going to last? I felt my chest tighten, but I wasn't going to let him break me. I wasn't going to fall into that trap again. No, Dad. I'm not doing this for the book. I'm doing this for me. For the person I want to be. The one you've never let me become. Another pause. Then, quietly, he said, You're making a mistake, Naomi. You'll see. All this, it's not real. You can't just walk away from family. I shook my head. You never saw me. You saw a version of me that fit into your world. But I don't belong there. I'm finally living my truth, and I'm not going to apologize for that. He didn't reply immediately. I could almost hear him trying to process what I had just said. You can't just pretend we don't exist, he said, his tone low now, a hint of desperation slipping through. We're your family. We deserve respect. I've given you respect, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. But it's never been enough for you, has it? You've always wanted me to be something I'm not. And now I'm done trying to be who you want me to be. Another long silence. But this time, it was different. It wasn't a silence filled with anger or frustration. It was the silence of someone who realized they had lost. I let the silence sit for a moment before I spoke again. I'm sorry it's come to this. I wish it didn't have to be this way. But I'm not coming back. I've got my life now. And I'm living it, whether you like it or not. And with that, I hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, feeling that wave of relief flood over me again. The storm had finally passed. Wow, this is where the real freedom begins, right? Sometimes it takes standing up to those we love most to finally step into who we're truly meant to be. If you've ever had to make a tough choice to move on from people who didn't support you, share your story with me in the comments. And don't forget to hit like if you're feeling the power of standing your ground. The journey isn't over yet. The consequences of Naomi's choices have just begun, but she's stronger than ever. Find out how she continues to rise, even when the world around her tries to pull her down. You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned for the final chapter. The next few weeks felt like a whirlwind. I'd finally moved into my new place, and with it came a sense of freedom I hadn't known I'd been missing. I was no longer stuck in a cage of expectations, no longer the daughter they wanted me to be. I was just me. The writer. The dreamer. The one who had fought so hard to get to this point. And my book. It was everywhere. On shelves, in readers' hands, getting rave reviews. It felt surreal, but it was real. The book was mine. My words, my story, my life, finally out in the world for everyone to see. But the best part? It wasn't about the book anymore. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about me, about taking control of my future and being unapologetically myself. I spent most of my days writing, and when I wasn't doing that, I was planning my next steps. A book tour was in the works, 30 cities, starting with Portland, my hometown. I couldn't wait to stand in front of an audience, to share my story and hear their reactions. It wasn't just about selling books, it was about connection. About showing people that it was possible to keep fighting for your dreams, even when everyone around you told you to quit. There were still texts from Mom, still occasional calls from Dad. But I didn't answer. I couldn't. They didn't get it. They never would. But that didn't matter anymore. It was hard at first, silencing that part of me that wanted to fix everything, to make them proud. But the longer I lived in my truth, the easier it became. I was living the life I was meant to live. And if they couldn't see that, then I couldn't make them. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got a message. It was from Chloe. She wanted to meet. I almost laughed at the timing. I was heading into a new phase of my life, and now, here she was, asking to reconnect. We met at a coffee shop, a neutral ground where neither of us could hide behind the walls of family drama. She sat down across from me, looking a little hesitant, a little unsure of how to start. I've been thinking a lot, she said, taking a breath before meeting my eyes. About everything. About you, and what you said. I'm sorry, Naomi. I should have supported you more. I didn't understand, but I get it now. I didn't know what to say. For years, I had tried to make her proud, tried to be someone she would look up to. But sitting there, across from her, I realized something. I didn't need her approval anymore. I appreciate that, I said, my voice steady. But you don't have to apologize. You didn't know. And I get it now too. I'm not here to fix our past. I'm just here to live my life. Her lips curled into a small smile. You really did it, didn't you? I nodded, feeling that familiar warmth fill me. I really did. She paused for a moment, then reached into her bag and pulled out a copy of my book. She handed it to me, her eyes soft. I want to buy one this time. Full price, no discounts. I laughed, taking the book from her hands. You're crazy, but I appreciate it. And just like that, the weight lifted. There was no need for me to explain myself anymore. I didn't need them to believe in me. I already did. I was already enough. That night, I sat in my new apartment, looking out at the city skyline, a soft breeze coming in through the window. The world was quieter now. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I opened up my laptop and began to type the first lines of my next book. A new story. A new chapter. A fresh start. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. And that's the power of following your dreams and standing up for yourself, even when everyone around you tells you to stop. If this story inspired you, leave a comment and let me know how it resonated with you. And if you've ever had to walk away from toxic people to pursue your passion, you're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your life and never giving up on what truly matters. And that's it. Naomi's journey has come full circle, from struggling under her family's expectations to becoming a successful author who's finally free to live her life the way she always dreamed. The story ends with a sense of empowerment and renewal, proof that even in the face of adversity, you can rise above and create the life you were always meant to live.